Hello, and welcome to another brand new episode of Between Two Berms, the Omaha Storm Chasers podcast, where we talk about the Omaha Storm Chasers.
Weird.
I am your host, Scott Pop, joined by my fastidious co-host, Andrew Asbury.
Are you sure you're pronouncing that right?
No, I didn't listen to it beforehand like I did last time, so I could have said that wrong. But it means meticulous and overly delicate.
Some of those things could be correct.
So that's not as like a great one, but it's not openly negative, so I think it's a nice medium.
I'll take it.
All right, how's it going?
It's going well. It's things are starting to pick up. Season's right around the corner. A lot of planning coming down to the wire. We're trying to execute some of these things, so things are moving fast and furious.
Moves are being made constantly.
On and off the field.
Oh, yeah. All right, we are joined by a special guest today, a new co-worker, if you will, our new media and public relations manager, former Omaha World Herald beat writer, Tony Boone. Tony, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's a pleasure. I hope we have you on a lot more.
I have a feeling that might happen.
You could say you have a little bit of Storm Chasers experience.
Just a tad, yeah.
Maybe a bit more than us.
Yeah, been around a little bit, more so in the past few years than before, but have really always been around Rosenblatt and now Werner Park. Kind of grew up at that ball yard as far as going to great games as a kid. I've covered numerous events at the ballpark out in Rosenblatt, and then, of course, was here as a fan before I became the Storm Chasers beat writer in the middle of the 2014 season, and, did that all the way up through last year.
Well, not only are Scott and I excited the fact that you're filling a position that we were, a short time ago trying to fill ourselves on top of what we were already doing, but you bring such a wealth of stories and knowledge of the organization, and not just about baseball either. But we'll get into some of those other things as we keep talking and learn more about you. But what can fans expect of the Storm Chasers? What you might be doing here moving forward for the team?
Well, the thing that interested me about joining on was just the vast directions that this could possibly go. I mean, I know that here in the early going, and again, we're in week 1 right here for me, it's all about just kind of learning where everything is at, like physically learning where everything is at. Not necessarily things like within the ballpark, we're talking about computer programs and websites and things like that I may be using down the road. But I think once we get up and going and everything like that, I think this can go, a whole lot of directions. I was a sports writer, but I was a broadcaster before that, and I also had a little bit of a TV background back when the TV gear looked a lot different than what it does right now. But I do think that all of those things can come into play here at some point in the future, and I think there's going to be new and exciting ways that we can tell stories about the franchise and the things that go on behind the scenes as well, all the way up to when guys first get here to when they become Kansas City Royals. And I think that the new and different ways that we can share the stories of the players, the managers, the coaches, the people behind the scenes could be really exciting here in the upcoming future. And that's why I think this can be a great marriage with myself and an organization that I already cared a lot about and I already was deeply invested in before I stepped on board as a member of the staff.
So you just touched on it a little bit. How long have you been in Omaha? And just give us a brief history of what you've been doing. Obviously, a lot of people know you from the World Herald, but you mentioned you've had radio experience, TV experience, and that sort of thing. What's in your history? What have you been up to?
What's your story? What's your biography?
Okay, I'll try to keep this as brief.
Keep it.
So
we
don't,
want
lose
the big bullet point.
Right
yeah,
here, but I think that some of it is relevant as far as what people can expect going forward. Well, I grew up not very far from here, down the road in Tabor, Iowa. If you're going to Kansas City, like to a Royals game, if you want to take a left at the Bartlett exit, and about 7 miles off the road is this little burg called Tabor. And that's where I grew up, but not far from here. My dad always worked in Omaha, which allowed me to be, at games at the College World Series, at Royals games at Rosenblatt Stadium, to come watch the Omaha Racers when they were a Continental Basketball Association in town, and, go to Creighton Hoops as a kid and things like that. So, Omaha is very familiar with me all the way through my life. I didn't live here until after I graduated from college in Nebraska, and I came up here for my first, I guess, media stint in Omaha. When I started out working at the local Cox station, I was a broadcaster on the station, did a lot of local high school and college events on there, but we also carried Omaha Royals games, 4 or 5 times a year, and I was a part of that crew. And I originally got on staff because I got hired as a sports guy that they could bring on that knew a lot about sports, and it ended up that I was basically the floor manager in the press box working with the play-by-play and color guys because, at that point in my life, that's what I wanted to be, and that's what I was already doing. So that was my foot in the door with them, and I got into broadcasting. That eventually took me out of Omaha to go somewhere else to do broadcasting, and there I was a play-by-play guy exclusively for a long time. And as things kind of worked out, and this is out in Hastings, Nebraska, by the way, just a couple of hours from here, as things worked out there, that station kind of backed away from sports a little bit. At the same time, a spot opened up next door at the newspaper. And when I say next door, I'm talking packing your bags and moving just across the alley from one job to the next. And I walked into a newspaper job in 1999, having never written anything for print in my life. And 20 years later, I was still writing for the World Herald when I walked away last year. So anyway, I came back to Omaha in 2004, and have been here ever since. Most of that time has been spent at the World Herald. At first, I just had come back to Omaha. As people that know, you've seen the same names in the World Herald sports section for years and years and years. So people weren't leaving. There wasn't a spot for me when I first came on board, but I knew people that worked there and began writing for them immediately. And I just kind of hung around, kept writing stories until a full-time staff spot opened up. And I guess you could say my time at the World Herald is really split into 3 thirds. The first third was I was kind of covering everything, and when I say everything, I mean everything.
Home
when
and
it came
garden?
to sports, no, all sports.
Wow.
All sports. I specialized, but
The courthouse
the
beat.
thing I became known for there was being versatile because I could cover a wide variety of sports. So I did that basically for the first 5 years, and then we started an initiative over in western Iowa. And since I grew up there, I was a natural guy that they could put over there. So I was part of that team for 5 years, and then I moved over in the role that I held up until last summer. For the final 5 years that I was there, and that was, covering the Omaha Storm Chasers. I had covered boxing through that entire 15-year stretch. I picked that up in 2004 and had gone all the way through that. I covered UNO for the last 5 years as well, and those were my 3 main beats, but whenever we had big events come to town, and Omaha's known for its big events, I was always a part of those, whether it was a member of the crew that was covering the NCAA tournament was in town. Every year when the College World Series came around, I was at 2 or 3 NCAA volleyball tournaments when they were down at, the CenturyLink Center, formerly the Quest Center, as well. So pretty much you name it. I sat and talked to Kevin Garnett after an NBA game while he was eating pizza, just the 2 of us in the locker room when I was there.
Anything is possible.
Yeah. I remember covering a WNBA exhibition game here. So you name it, I probably did it. And, as I said, that's all kind of led me to where we're at now.
All right, so I'm not from Omaha. I know Asbury's not from Omaha, so I would have no idea what's even happened here before last year. What are 2 or 3 highlights from, you talked about eating with KG or whatever, that for me that would be number 1, but what are 2 or 3 of those, the highlights from working for the World Herald?
Well, that one probably doesn't even make my top 5 or 10. It was just a fun mention because it was
humble brag.
Yeah, it was such a low key thing. I just went to talk to him after the game. It just happened to be everybody else cleared out of the locker room.
In BD, it's whatever.
Yeah, exactly. He was eating pizza. Obviously, I'm not immune to the fact that I know that everyone's going to remember me from the World Herald for covering Terrence Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
That I can never avoid that. I'm not upset about that. I'm proud of the coverage that we gave to Crawford and his rise to becoming a world champion, the first world champion in boxing that we've ever had from Omaha. I've known Bud since he was a teenager. When he won a world title in 2014, it was probably one of the coolest things that ever happened to this city. I don't know still to this day whether people really understand what a great thing that we have going right now with a 3-division world champion and a future Hall of Famer who is in his active prime. I hope retrospectively sometime down the road everybody gets what a big deal this is. But when he won that in 2014, and then they came back in the summer that year, immediately after the College World Series, the Saturday after the College World Series ended, we had the first World Championship fight in Omaha in 42 years. And an undefeated Bud Crawford, who was newly crowned as a lightweight champion, fought Yuri Orcas Gamboa from Cuba, who was an Olympic gold medalist and also an undefeated champion. And that night at the CenturyLink Center is one that probably will never be topped in this city. It was incredible. I was sitting ringside when Doug McDermott scored his 3,000th point in front of a packed house of Creighton fans against Providence that day. And I thought, wow, I'll never hear anything in Omaha be any louder than this. And that Crawford night, there were probably 6,000 less people there. And I thought the roof was going to come down because it was just such an electric atmosphere. So that will be forever number one. So Crawford's career has been great. I had a great run when I was over in Iowa covering Iowa Western sports. It's the community college right over there. But they went on this run at the start of this decade in which they won 3 baseball national titles. The soccer teams won national titles back-to-back within 30 minutes of each other at 2 different locations. And the football team, which I covered from the day that it began, won a national championship in its 4th season, and that was just a really cool moment. And obviously everything that's happened out here, and I could go on and on and on, and I'm sure we'll get into some of these things that have happened out here at Warner Park. They've just been so memorable and just so much fun. And I've told everybody when I left the newspaper last year that, I'm walking away from something that I still really love, and probably in my mind I thought I would always do, but I'm walking away with enough stories that I can share for a lifetime, and I'm never going to look back at that as a bad thing.
Real quick, do you remember Jake Waters? Did he go to Iowa Western?
Jake Waters did go to Iowa Western.
Go Cats, baby.
Not only did I cover Jake Waters at Iowa Western, I covered Jake Waters as a high schooler before he got to Iowa Western. And I also went down in K-State. I was the guy that went to K-State every year to talk to Jake Waters before the season. And during the season. I covered 3 or 4 K-State games.
Who would have thunk? Iowa Western, powerhouse of the Midwest.
I'll tell you what, when that baseball team won its first national title in 2010, Iowa Western opened a lot of eyes all across the country because no one thought a school from the north could do something like that. And it turned out baseball was just opening the door for a lot of things over there.
Yeah, I mean, I only heard of him because of Jake Waters. 10 wins.
We've had guys out here at Warner Park. Anthony Bemboom, who made his major league debut last year, has been here playing against the Storm Chasers with a couple of different ball clubs.
Yeah.
There have been guys that have come here. Jake Petrichka, I think, pitched out here last year, also an Iowa Western guy. So pretty good athletic program over there, and they've had a lot of guys go on to some success, and it won't be long probably until we see another one. And Dan Tillow, who's in the Royals minor league system and is working his way up as a prospect, and I'm hoping beyond hope that we get Daniel sometime this year.
Hopefully whenever we get Clint Scholes on, we can have you on and you can ask him some hard-hitting questions about Dan Tillow and get his opinion on it.
Yeah, Clint spends a lot of time with me up in the press box here.
Yep.
Let me just say, of all the things as far as cool events that I've been involved in, and I know how much everyone on staff at the time worked to make this happen, but having the AAA All-Star Game here in 2015, I know is a ton of work for everybody else. But for those of us that were covering it, what a fantastic event. Access to everything, all kinds of things going on. How great was the home run derby that first night, and to have a game that we had, and it kind of went back and forth a little bit, and the players involved. It was just a really special deal, and it's something that I hope that sometime down the road we'll want to do again. I don't know as of right now that anybody's raising their hand to volunteer for that again, but it was really special. It was the first time it had ever happened here in Omaha, and wow, that week was just unbelievable with the people that we had here, all the people involved. And I guess if there was anything that was a disappointment about it was the fact that it happened in 2015, and there were so many great prospects at the start of the season that we thought, wow, that guy's going to be here in Omaha in just a few months for that All-Star game. And for whatever reason that year, there were so many call-ups in the first month that we didn't get a lot of those guys. So I do feel that we got cheated just a little bit, but the event itself was still really cool.
I was going to say, I was okay with the turnout of 2015 being in Kansas City, so that's fine.
Well, yes. I'm not just talking like Royals guys. I'm talking everybody. We had a chance to get, guys like Correa and Lindor and that crew were all like, I think Corey Seager was supposed to be part of that, and he was the one guy left in the minors, and he was going to get called up right away. So he decided to not play right before the game, too. So we missed out on some big names, but it was still a really cool event.
So you mentioned the All-Star Game. Obviously, covering the Storm Chasers for so long. Before that, the Omaha Royals. What are some more recent players who have come through the system? Do you have any fun stories about them, or maybe just like really engaging stories that you're really fond of, and just looking back on it, you're maybe appreciative to have been a part of their story coming up to the majors? Yeah,
well, I think the best part of this is to watch the guys finally make it and know that you were able to share a little bit of their backstory before they got to the big leagues. Just in recent years here, we've seen the development of Whit Merrifield, of Hunter Dozier, of Adalberto Mondesi. Nicky Lopez wasn't here for very long, but how fun was it last year when he came back here to Omaha
He was
and played
great.
in the MLB game downtown in his first major league home run? One of the coolest things I've ever seen, for sure. Ryan O'Hearn, to watch Jorge Soler become what he became before, he went and led the American League in homers last year. The development of prospects, who a couple of them looked like they weren't ever going to quite get over the hump, and Bubba Starling and Kyle Zimmer. And also watching, Josh DeMont, finally get control of that nasty stuff that he has and become a bullpen guy for the Royals. That's been the best part of it, but some individual things, and I wrote down a couple of them here just because they were so cool in the moment. The first year that I covered the team in 2014 was obviously the last time the team won the championship. So to watch the second half of that season kind of unfold the way it did, in August, Carlos Peguero hit 15 home runs in August.
That's insane.
And he still hit one of the most impressive things that I've ever seen. Peguero, if anybody doesn't know, is a left-handed batter, big dude, big swing, and he crushed one to right field that hit the pole like in the air and bounced back. And it's the one with the big McDonald's sign on it, I believe. So
That is
it was
insane.
a massive shot for a guy that was on a monster tear at the time. Aaron Brooks at the end of that season, I think, won his last 7 starts and had like a 1.36 ERA over that. And the dude in the PCL Game 5, which was the first winner-take-all championship game in the Pacific Coast League since, I think, 98, threw a 2-hit shutout in which he got the last 20 guys out in a row.
Is that all?
Yeah, it was incredibly impressive. And obviously, Brett Hayes goes on and hits the 2-run homer to beat Pawtucket in the championship game in Charlotte just a couple of days later. So fantastic finish to that season. But I was really happy to watch Brooks because earlier that year the Royals had called him up for a spot start.
Right.
It was
and
not good.
Yeah, and he just got hammered. So to watch him overcome that and turn it around was really cool. Obviously, the next year we had the All-Star game, but the thing I'm always going to remember about the 2015 season was being here on the day that the Royals traded for Johnny Cueto, because John Lamb and Brandon Finnegan were the 2 key pieces in that trade. They also got Cody Reed. But that happened here like it was a day game, and everyone came out, and this was kind of unfolding as the first inning was going on, and, Finnegan and Lamb weren't there. So I left the press box and went back to find them, they had just found out that they got traded to the Reds. And I ran into them in the locker room, and John was standing there, and Brandon came out. He had gotten in the shower because he never played. And we were sitting here talking about how these guys were just traded with Johnny Cueto, who would be a key piece for the Royals to go on and win the World Series. And they understood how big of a deal it was, and it was kind of cool because here in Omaha, suddenly the eyes of baseball were on us. We were a part of this big trade.
Well, it's crazy.
That was just a really cool deal.
It's crazy that the major league beat writers or the reporters, whoever it is, it's crazy how much they keep tabs on the minor league Twitter and the reporters and the beat writers down on the AAA or AA levels, especially around trade time in July. They'll just hound Twitter, follow you all day long just to make sure, especially when we're talking about game prep, what players are dressed, what players aren't, and they make a lot of inferences, who's going to get traded. Oh, this person's hurt. This person's sitting out this day. This person's benched. That means he's going to get traded, right? So I'm sure you probably get an uptick in followership around that time back in the day when, it was around trade time.
Well, yeah, especially if the Royals had a piece here that you thought that could be involved. And along those same lines, people do that if they're just following their own team. One of the days I'll never forget out here was the day Alex Gordon got hurt and Whit Merrifield got pulled from the game. And everyone knew that Whit was going to go up, but it was right before the All-Star game. I think Yordano Ventura was about to come off the disabled list, if I remember right. And anyway, Whit actually thought he was going to get called up, even though no one had officially told him he'd just been pulled from the game. But everyone here congratulated him. It turned out the Royals didn't really need him to come up because the All-Star break was coming. And I walked in to talk to Whit just to find out if he had heard anything after the game. I'd already written my game story. I left like just a little gap in it on whether or not Whit was being promoted or not. And I basically had 10 minutes before I had to file. So I went out there to check again to see if he'd heard anything. And Whit was sitting by himself with his flip-flops on, and he just looked dejected, and his phone was laying on the floor between his legs. And I go, Whit, did you hear anything? And he just looked at me and shook his head. And, he was just so dejected because he wasn't going to go. And then he didn't get called up the rest of the year. And so at that time, you're thinking, as the writer, like, wow, you might have just watched a guy get so close to his dream, and what if he never makes it? Obviously, Whit took that and put a chip on his shoulder and became like, one of the greatest recent Royals here over the last couple of years. And so that's just a backstory that never means anything. But in the moment, it was like an incredible emotional time, for him. And here I am just buzzing through like with 10 minutes left to hit send just to find out whether or not he got a call one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still filed away. I'm sure it is, but when he didn't get called up and then he started the year with us again the following year, he was very upset.
Oh, yeah.
Still coming out of spring training, and we had him do a Stir Up the Storm video or something like that, and it might have been one of the worst Stir Up the Storm videos we've ever had on record, and it'll probably never see the light of day. But he is the ultimate chip on the shoulder guy, and he carries that around with him everywhere. But he has such a rich history here in Omaha, especially with the College World Series and here at the Storm Chasers, and we're definitely glad he's up with the Royals and doing the things that he's doing, and he's always the center of trade talk. But me personally, I wish he would stay on the team and be a part of that transition to the next championship team there for the Royals.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because that honestly was like kind of what I was leading with when, I had the privilege of covering the Major League game last year, and I guess that's one of the things I should have brought up is probably number 2 behind the Crawford run is the fact that I covered the only Major League Baseball game we've ever had in the state. But Whit was the natural guy to talk about going into that because he had such a love-hate relationship with Omaha at that moment. I mean, a guy that grew up playing college baseball and he wanted to get to the College World Series, and then not only does he get an iconic moment during the World Series, he gets the walk-off hit in the last win of a game at Rosenblatt Stadium. It was the last College World Series game in the stadium that will always be known as the home of the CWS. And Whit's the guy that has that. And then to come back here on his way up to the Royals, and then as you mentioned, not only was he the last guy like cut that year, it was like 2 years in a row. So he was really dejected, and so he went from like Omaha being this great place to, man, anything but Omaha, to then last year coming back, as a successful major leaguer with a brand new contract, and everything at the end worked out well for him. But boy, Omaha is always going to be that place that has this give and take with Whit just because of everything that he went through here.
And you can't blame him. I mean,
no, trust me. Like, you have no idea how many times I had to try to justify Whit still being here to just the man on the street. They're like, yeah, I see the Merrifield still tearing it up, and I'm like, yeah. I go, his shot's coming. I mean, there's nothing he's doing here that's hurting anything. Yeah, exactly. But it worked out well in the long run for everybody. I'm glad that he stuck it out, and he's probably a better player now because of it, because he really went and fine-tuned his game and tried to become the best athlete he could during every offseason just to get his chance to get there.
All right, so another Royal, very hyped. He was here in Omaha for probably longer than he wanted to, is Bubba Starling. I know you covered him for several years.
Yeah, well, not only was he hyped then, he was hyped here well before baseball ever came into play at this level.
Good old Skurs.
Yes, exactly. Bubba's been a fascination around Omaha for a long, long time because he was so heavily recruited by Nebraska. And at the time he was drafted, the draftees didn't have to sign in the same period that they did. So it could drag on into August. So as part of a bargaining chip, Bubba actually showed up at the University of Nebraska, was in his football jersey, and was out signing autographs for fans on the team's fan day because if he wasn't going to sign with the Royals, he really wasn't going to go play college football. And there's always going to be a part of this fan base around here that's going to wonder how things would have been different for Nebraska football had Bubba Starling stuck to football and not gone and played baseball. But you don't turn down a club record signing bonus, to go do that. So obviously everyone's waiting for Bubba to get here, and my story with Bubba's arrival is a funny one because I had been trying to get my way down to Northwest Arkansas to write around about Royals prospects right around the time before Bubba got up here. It worked out that I was able to do that right before the call-up. We didn't know that was coming. So I went down right at the end of the College World Series. I went to the Texas League All-Star Game, which had Jake Junis in it. Frank Schwindel was in the home run derby there. I was down in Springfield on a Tuesday, and Northwest Arkansas opened up their second half on a Thursday. And Bubba had a couple of strikeouts that looked pretty bad that night. He would have struck out a third time, but he got hit with a 2-strike pitch. And then he and Terrence Gore got crossed up on a fly ball in the outfield, and he dropped a ball in a 1-run game.
Which year was that?
That would have been 2016. And so he was not wanting to chat after the game at all, and I understood that. So I had to come back without a Bubba Starling story because he was one of the reasons why I was down there. The following Friday, I did a radio interview here in town, and someone asked me about seeing Bubba. I go, it's funny that, I just saw him last night, and I go, I just don't know when he gets here. He looks like a guy who's not only down on his luck, that he also is letting it get to him and things like that. The Royals had him up here the very next day. So we did an interview on the field probably 36 hours after he didn't want to do the interview, and it was the same interview because he hadn't played a game since. Yeah. And so he came up here, and they gave him a fresh start, and obviously it turned around. And so when Bubba had this great start to last season, we were able to talk about that night and actually joke about it. And he's like, let's be honest, dude, I knew I didn't belong here. But the Royals needed him to get a fresh start, and at that point you can't demote a guy when you're trying to build his confidence. So he came up here, and he's turned it around. And I happened to be in Kansas City last year when he made his major league debut, and I'll never forget the ovation that he got when he came to the plate for the first time. It was a really cool deal knowing how that thing started here, that ended up with him being up there and getting that kind of ovation near his hometown. Well, I wouldn't want to walk away from us doing this today about talking about some other just quick cool moments that have happened out here. I was only the beat writer for 5 years. I took that part of my job very seriously. Not that I didn't take the other parts, but I understood the history that came along with that responsibility. The two guys before me did a combined 33 years of covering this team, and I think I was only like the fifth or sixth guy from the World Herald that covered this team, and that was over a 50-year span. So it was always something that I knew meant a lot to the people in the community. I knew it meant a lot to the guys that came before me, and I felt like, I always had to do my due diligence because there was a standard set that I was expected to live up to. But to be able to be here when Barry Zito retired, even though the A's ended up having him pitch a little bit later in the year, but he legit had a retirement party out in the Werner Park clubhouse. Kyle Loesch also retired here. We had a couple of MVPs come through here on rehab assignments. Josh Hamilton was here. We saw Chris Bryant, who couldn't be a better guy, here with the Iowa Cubs. We also got guys like, from the Royals, Salvi and Gordo were here at the same time, and there was that night where both Jabba Chamberlain and Gordon were here as former Huskers, and we drew a huge crowd here that night because, the local guys were back and they were playing in Omaha. And that was just a really cool deal. And some of the best prospects in baseball. We saw Pete Alonso here right before that. Anybody would have told me what Pete Alonso was going to do last year, the year before, I'd have totally believed it because he was doing that when he was here, at the end of the season before. Cody Bellinger was here at the end of his run in the minor leagues and, hit the crap out of the ball in a little bit of time that he saw here.
2017 there?
Yeah, we saw Matt Chapman here too. Just guys that you knew when you saw them play for the other teams. These guys are going to be big league stars, and it's going to be fun when we start getting some of those guys here from the Royals organization too. Guys, when you see them, kind of like Mondesi, where that this guy is why there's so much hype around the future of the Royals, and it's going to be cool to be able to share those stories with you guys as we go forward.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to it. Kind of a different voice that we're adding here on our staff, and doing some new things, producing our own content. It's content for our fans. It's opportunities that we haven't had before to produce this stuff. And, having you as a free agent, quote unquote, we were relishing the fact that we could even had the potential to pick you up and bring you on board. Yeah, it's worked out well, and I think it's going to be a thing that, as we go forward, we're going to be able to go in any direction we want, kind of bringing it back how we started this podcast. There are a lot of things that we can do coming up that I hope to be a part of, and even if I'm not physically a part of, I hope at least I can share the idea with the two of you, and you can use your expertise to kind of take it to the next level. But I think there's a lot of fun things coming up for both Royals and Storm Chasers fans, not only this season, but the seasons beyond this. And, now that we're here in just week one, I'm really excited about the potential that it has.
All right, Tony, we got some random questions here for you. Okay. They have nothing to do with baseball, so good luck.
I'm ready.
Who has the best fast food burger?
Can I say runs and get away with it without getting? Or
they have burgers. They have burgers.
Yeah.
Asbury?
That's great.
Favorite burger? Fast food?
It's. I'm not going to bring up the Whataburger versus In-N-Out debate, so I'm just going to go Five Guys.
Are you a Marvel guy?
Movies? Yes. Comic books? No.
Favorite Marvel character?
Boy, that's a tough one. I suppose Iron Man, because I think that's the one that started it all off, and I didn't know what to expect when we went to the first Iron Man movie. But man, did that set the tone for like the next 20-something.
It's also a really good movie.
Yeah, it was. It was a shock how great that movie really was.
It was so good that all the Marvel movies before that, they just threw out retcon. It was like, this isn't a thing. It's starting from here on out.
Raspberry?
I've always been an X-Men or Spider-Man guy, so I was very happy when Disney bought out Fox, 20th Century Fox. As that means they're going to be introducing these characters in my favorite movie franchise.
There you go.
Scott, what about yourself?
That's a good question. You know what? I don't know if I even have one, but if I had to choose, I would go with Paul Rudd and Ant-Man.
Great choice.
Love that guy.
Love him. Look at us.
Name a stadium you've never been to that's on your bucket list.
Fenway Park.
That's one of the few that I have been to.
Yeah, well, here's the deal with that, too. I would have been at Fenway if the Red Sox would have opened in town. And going back to our question about the cool things that I covered the UNO hockey team in the Frozen Four in 2015, which also coincided with the week the baseball opened. And the Red Sox, unfortunately, were out of town playing Philadelphia, so Fenway was kind of off limits there. But if there'd have been a home game, I'd have found a way there.
What's the coolest one you have been to?
For me,
Mm-hmm.
Wrigley, because I grew up a Cubs fan, because we had WGN in my little town on cable, and so to finally get there for the first time, which I did in high school, was a really good deal.
That's probably my answer of one that I haven't been to that's on my bucket list is Wrigley. I haven't been to that many. I have a lot of friends who are ballpark chasers, whatever you want to call them. They have a lot more impressive list than I do, so I'm very envious of their travels and the ballparks they've seen.
For me, I've always wanted to go to the Rose Bowl, watch a Rose Bowl.
That's a great
The
choice.
actual bowl game.
Like Rose Bowl and like the Garden, like I feel like those might be some of the most iconic places to go to for a
I guess
sporting event.
I took it as baseball stadium because there are other ones. Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
stadium.
Then I need
We talk about storm chasers and things.
Okay, well,
This is the thing.
then I need to go to the Dean Dome and watch a Carolina basketball.
There you go.
Oh,
There you go.
That sounds good too. All right, we'll do one more. Your friend buys you a scratcher's ticket as a birthday present. After taxes, you keep $50,000. How much do you give your friend?
I'd pay him back. I'd pay him back the $1. Whatever the scratcher ticket was worth,
What's your answer? $1?
I would pay him back.
If I scratched it in front of him, 25,000, half of it.
Ooh,
Wow, that's a big number.
No way.
If I walk away without it, I don't think that it's even a winner
I'd be,
in his mind.
okay, maybe like if they're like wanting like a PlayStation or a TV, I'll buy them that.
Yeah, I'll give him like $100 or like a small,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they did buy me the.
It's more than $1, but it's nowhere near $25,000.
If I'm scratching it off in front of them.
Well, that's why I said I think that it depends on whether if you aren't scratching off in front of him, then it's just a loser like every other one you ever scratch off is.
You will never have to know that I won $50,000. It could just go straight to my bank account.
Well, that's the thing. I think that 50,000 is a number where you could like not change your life and no one would ever know.
It'd just be helpful.
Yeah. If it was a Powerball ticket and you won, that would be kind of harder to get away with.
I would fall off the face of the earth. You will never hear from me again.
And with that, we will end. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Yes, for sure.
Appreciate it. We'll have you on several more times. Hopefully some more baseball-centric podcasts with some special guests, maybe some players. Looking forward to those episodes. As always, follow us on all of our social media feeds. OMA Storm Chasers on Twitter. Omaha Storm Chasers on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And Tony Boone will be managing some of these accounts, so be on the lookout for some of his tweets. Can't wait for those.
You won't know which ones they are, but they will be happening. Make sure to give us 5-star reviews. Leave us a comment. Leave us a suggestion. Send me an email. Whatever you want to do. Do it. Say bye, Asbury.
Goodbye.
We'll see you next time on Between Two Berms. The Berm Show.
The
Berm is closed.
This shouldn't be Between Two Berms. This should have been Between Two Berms.
Only in the winter.